I'm Matt Kohlberg, Civil Technical Specialist for Cancel. This is part 2 in a 3-part series on alignment constraints. Part 1 dealt with creating fixed alignment constraints. In this part 2, we're going to deal with floating alignment constraints. There are floating lines. In this case, there's 3 types. There are floating curves. It's quite a few different types. And there's floating spirals as well. If a fixed entity is quite often floating in space, you've specified 2 points or 3 points to fix these items in space. A floating entity is dependent on one other Civil 3D entity. For example, if I wanted to place a curve at the endpoint of this line, that curve would be attached on one side and dependent on one other Civil 3D entity. Placing a line off the end of this curve, same thing. It's attached on one side and is dependent on one other Civil 3D entity. And that's where I'll start. I would like a floating line because it's attached on one side. But which one? From the curve endpoint? Well, in this case, I need my line to finish at the center of this circle. If I went to the endpoint, it would be off in this kind of angle. No, I want to specify a through point. So it's a floating line from somewhere on the curve and a through point. So I'll pick this edge of the curve, and wherever I place this line, Civil 3D will do the rest. So I want it to go to the center of that circle. There you go. There's a floating line. Over here, you might be tempted to draw a basic line from here tangent to that curve using AutoCAD's O-snaps. That's not going to get exactly what you need. In fact, what has to happen, we need to use a floating line which is attached to this curve and sort of work backwards. You might say, hey, you're going to be drawing that line in the wrong direction. No, because we've used Civil 3D's constraint tools, the line segment will be drawn in the proper direction. So we're creating a line, however, it's going to be floating from somewhere along that curve. So I'll pick this, what is now a circle. There we go. Again, I'm picking my through point. I can pick any place I want. I'm going to pick that endpoint. A couple of things happen. It connects to the curve, and since we've filled in that gap, we now have some stationing. So there's still a couple more entities we need to create, but those are free entities, and those are going to be covered in part 3. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.